And we're rolling. So I recently posted some videos all about documenting my process of making my own Christmas cards last year using a reduction print method, using soft cut, lino cut printing processes. So I just wanted to share some reflections on those videos, and if you haven't seen them, I will share some links in the description so you can refer back to those. But I'll try to summarize everything as best I can here. Obviously, some time has passed and I learned a lot from that process. I made quite a lot of... I don't think I made a lot of mistakes, actually, but I had some challenges to work with. That sounds so arrogant. I didn't make mistakes. Of course I do. Everyone does. But I had a real problem with the inks that I was using and the soft cut material that I was using to carve the block. And I realise that it's an age-old chestnut that a bad artist blames their tools for everything that goes wrong, and there is truth in that, certainly. A good artist, whatever a good artist is, will generally be able to make something out of anything, and that's to their credit. But it is also true to say that however talented and experienced you are, you will be to an extent delimited by the materials that you're working with, whether that's working in clay or stone if you're a sculptor, or if you're a painter, whether you're using oils versus watercolors, if you're into drawing using charcoal or graphite. All of the different media that you use and the different quality of products that you have available to you, those will affect the outcome, whether we like it or not. And the issue that I had particularly with this process was that the soft cut material that I was using instead of traditional sort of grey lino had this very subtle difference in texture across it, which I didn't see at the beginning of the process, and it only became apparent as I started to print. And if you want to see all the full horror of how that went, again, please do watch the previous videos. So just as I understand that a good artist should be able to work with just about any tools, I also have always held true that a good artist, again whatever that is, should be able to work with their mistakes. They don't just see a slip up or something not quite working the way they expect it to as instant fail, screw it up, over your shoulder, start again. I've always tried to work with the mistakes and the challenges that I find and learn from them and make something potentially delightful out of them. Maybe not better than what I was going for, but sometimes you can make something that's just different and surprising, and that can be a very rewarding experience, I feel. So I think one of the big lessons that I took from this is that yes, the very cheap, accessible water-based inks that I've been using for relief printmaking so far are fine if I want to do a mono print, just one colour, maybe two. 1, 2, counting. I'm not very good with numbers, sorry. So yeah, they're really great for very simple designs that are bold and geometric and limited in colour range. But for something that I ended up doing for this project, which had in the end about 5 different layers of colour in it and lots of very intricate details with vines of ivy and little sprouting mistletoe fronds and berries and things, they just didn't have the structure to be able to deal with that, coupled with the uneven surface of the soft cut material that I was using. This gave this a very uneven texture throughout the prints, and I wasn't very happy with that. I like a little bit of texture in a relief print, and I like a little bit of wonky registration as well, because I'm kinky like that. Some people don't. They like everything to be absolutely flat, very precise. I think that's really incredible when you can get those kinds of results from relief printing, especially if you're using a home studio. But I like that tactility of handmade things that have a little bit of wonk to them, and yeah, just a little bit of sticky texture. But it has to be uniform and intentional. What I ended up with was just this line right down the center with texture on one side, nice smooth print on the other, and trying to address that or redress it even as I went through was a big learning curve, and it was risky, it was stressful, because I was making cards for people whom I love. I really wanted them to be able to have these things and to be able to enjoy them a good time before Christmas, not just for the big day. So yeah, definitely upping my game for materials was the big learning. I'm going to be using water-soluble oil-based inks for future projects. I've always avoided oil-based paints and products generally because you have to water them down with special solvents which smell horrible and aren't very good for you, and also it's just a dreadful faff and a lot of extra expense, whereas water-based stuff, you can rinse them under the tap and they're fine. So yeah, I will definitely be investing in some mid-range water-soluble oil-based inks for my next projects. So I will let you know how I get on with those. I'm also going to be sanding my blocks down from now on. I'm going to use up the last of the soft cut material that I have just because I don't want to waste it, but I've already invested actually in the inks I mentioned just now, and also some grey lino, just the traditional stuff that I used to use way back when I was in school. It is generally firmer than the soft cut stuff, so it might take me a little bit of a while to get into using that again, but I think overall it will probably yield better results. But in any case, I'm going to make a habit of just giving the surface that I'm working with a little bit of a sand, just with a medium and a fine grain sanding block in future, just to try and mitigate any of those issues with the wonky texture. So that's one lesson. Another thing that I found really awkward throughout this process was, in the previous videos, I say Merry Christmas a lot, because obviously, it's Christmas time. I want to wish people Merry Christmas, only you and I know it's not Christmas. Of course it's not. It's not Christmas when I'm making the things, everything that you see on the screen, and it's also not Christmas now when I'm recording the voiceovers and publishing the videos. The first part of the process happens in the run-up to Christmas, the second part happens just after. We're into almost into February now, so I've had to get used to adjusting that rhythm of working to just bleed out into the rest of the year. Definitely starting earlier is something that I need to do if I want to do this again next year, and if you want to do something similar, I recommend doing the same. I think part of my problem was that my first intentions, my first instincts when I wanted to make Christmas cards for people, and specifically using a reduction printing process, was I wanted it to be something that was quite easy to produce, that would take a degree of time and effort, but which wouldn't completely take over my life outside of working full-time and also being a human being who has to attend to all the things that human beings do when we're not sleeping and working, essentially all the stuff of life. Ideally, if I want to make Christmas cards next year, I'm going to try and limit myself to 3 colours. I ended up working with 5 for this. That was too many. I initially wanted quite a blocky geometric look. I ended up going for something that was quite medieval, sort of almost reminiscent of tapestries and arts and crafts movement, which I realise is not medieval, it's Victorian, but yeah. and I did my usual thing of starting out intending to do something really simple and then just allowing scope creep and just my own creative energies to take me down this windy road where everything became very intricate and a lot more time consuming than I had intended. And because I ended up rushing, little mistakes ended up creeping in, and I wasn't able to take the level of care that I would have liked to be able to take with these for this project. I'm just going to refer to my notes. So in the end, was it worth it? Was it worth me spending quite a lot of time? I haven't calculated how much time it took, but I need to clear at least 2 hours, I find, for every stage in the process, because it's not just carving of the block and the printing of the inks on the paper or the card or whatever medium you're using. It's everything that goes on outside of that, especially if you're documenting the process. I had to set up my camera and try and hook up my phone on my very wonky, bouncy little cheapo phone mount, set up the lighting, make sure that everything has enough battery life to cover the whole process, and just all that rigmarole of shooting video. It does eat into the time. And there's sharpening the tools, all my tool care that I showed in between things. There's allowing for drying time and also pressing the prints after you're done. That was something that I didn't show so much in those videos. I realistically needed to leave that throughout the week, and then the bulk of the carving and the printing would have to happen between Friday night and Sunday evenings over a course of several weeks. And there's mixing the paints, there's cleaning the residual ink off the paint off the block, and at the end of it all, packing stuff up and putting it away, because I don't have a dedicated studio space. I'm working from my own home, from our kitchen table, so there's a lot of moving things around that needs to happen. So every single stage in this process I need to leave at least 2 hours for, so that I really have the bandwidth that I need to sit down and do what needs to be done. So that's a bit of a ramble. But yeah, coming back to that question of was it worth it? Absolutely yes, I would say. I hope that all my families, plural, I hope that all my family and friends who did receive cards this year felt it was worthwhile too. I'm very deeply sorry that they didn't turn out exactly as I had wanted them to, but I think considering all of the issues that I had with the materials not behaving as expected along the way, and me not being experienced enough to be able to mitigate those from the start, I hope that people got things that were visually pleasing, if not beautiful, and that they could see all the time and the care that went into them. And I feel that that's a very important, potent thing to be able to give people at Christmas time. And I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit soppy here. I'm quite a soppy person. But I think also it's always been sort of this dichotomy for me. On the one hand, I am so blessed to have so many people in my life whom I love. I have a very large extended family, and my partner also has a large extended family, and we have a close circle of really good friends who are like family as well. And I wish that I had the resources to give everyone a Christmas present that really shows them how much I love them. But I can't do that because I just don't have that kind of money, frankly, and it's not practical. I'm sorry to say. I've tried every single year to try and make sure that everyone gets something, but it is hard, and I know for awful lot of people it's even harder. And I come from a position of privilege to be able to make things from the company. I'm privileged to be able to make things from the comfort of my own home. And I think, if nothing else, if I'm able to give people the gift of time, which is essentially what you do when you make something for people, you say, I know it might not look like much, but I love you enough to be able to sit down and take time and effort to make this thing just for you. And I think that is absolutely worth all of the headaches that you might experience as you're going about the actual creative process of making those things. So I'll certainly be doing this again, but I will be applying all those lessons that I have learned throughout the rest of the process. Speaking of such things, I found when I was printing the final layer, which was just like not quite a pure black, it's like a charcoal-y black that I mixed up. I made way too much ink because, again, I was rushing. I just wanted to make sure I definitely had enough to make all 25-ish cards that I wanted to send out to people. And so having all this ink left over, and I also had a lot of the card left over, I thought, well, I may as well use it up and just print some black and white ones. Why not? And this is how they turned out. I'm gutted. They look really good. And it's kind of irritating, but also a bit vindicating in a way. Because my first instinct, as I say, was to do something in just 1 or 2 colours and keep it simple. And I think, if only I had just done black and white, or maybe, embellish these afterwards with a little bit of colour, that would have saved me an awful lot of work. It would equally have given people something that showed them how much I love them. And also it might have looked a little less messy, perhaps. I don't know. Anyway, I have, I think, about 12 of these left over, so if you want to purchase some of these for your own Christmas cards next year, they're in my Etsy shop. I will leave a linky in the description below. So that has covered Was It Worth It? And the outcomes. Thank you so much for joining me for my little Christmas card making adventure. I hope that it's been useful to you, and if it hasn't been useful, I hope at least it's been entertaining. I'm going to be posting more projects over the next 6 months. I'm going to aim for 1 or 2 videos a month, so I hope that you'll join me for those as well. Bye-bye. That was terrible, so I'm going to do another take.